Groomers! Welcome back to my channel. So, as you remember, I posted my last video about how I'm a dog groomer, professional dog groomer. So I wanted just to go over actually some of the tools that I use as a dog groomer, but also kind of just the tools that are a really good baseline to have for if you're a professional dog groomer. This is with no restrictions. I do double coats, wire coats, heavy coats, do, long, short, curly, wavies, doodles, poodles, all that. At the time, what I was known for was huskies, doodles, and Yorkies. So, pretty wide variety, and poodles, small and large. So, toys and standards. So, one of the biggest things you're going to use as a professional dog groomer is going to be a slicker brush, and this one is actually a flexible head. It has two sides, and you can kind of tell the difference. Not a whole lot on camera, but one of these is longer than the other one, so you've got a short head and a long head. They do have bigger versions of this, but I really like this one because it's not super huge. The other one that they have that's larger than this one, it's two of these together, which I don't mind, but I really like this one because it's just a solid stroke. And obviously it's got the nub handles here. These are very soft rubber. I believe it's rubber or silicone, and very nice handle grip. So really, anyway, you hold this. I'm left-handed myself, so I do look for tools that are either have multi-use or are left-handed. You won't come across a whole lot of brushes where that's going to matter. I do have a few where that does matter, and they are for right-handed, but I will show you how I use those. I don't believe they make them in a different style, the brushes I have, but they might have specific left-handed brushes that are in that style. That's just something you kind of have to see. Left-handed grooming supplies is very hard to come by. Not a lot of left-handed people are groomers. It's very rare. It's very rare to be left-handed in the first place. So not all slicker brushes are created equal is one thing I will say. This one is actually by, I don't believe it says on here, but I know that this is by Ryan's Pet Supplies. Not sponsored, anything like that. I just really like them because they're very affordable, and they're very, they're really good quality brand. So, now all slicker brushes are created equal. The biggest thing you're going to look for with a slicker brush is going to be, I have two different ones here, and I'll tell you about this one in a minute, is the number of tines, the thickness of them, and the softness of them. So a lot of cheap slicker brushes, they will have, this one's a little bit cheaper, so I'll show you this one, but it's not much different. They have less tines. See how much space is between those compared to this one? See, there's quite a bit of a cluster there. And what that does is it creates a softer surface, and it actually divides the hair follicles better as well, obviously, right? When you think of wet brushes we use on our own hair have several clusters of bristles, and that's kind of the idea of how it works. Well, this is the same idea with these. Now this one is a cheaper slicker brush, not super different. It's about, I believe it's a 10% difference in price. It's not super awful. This one is more of a, I don't want to say like a grocery store brand, but it's kind of like an everyday brush. It's not for professionals, it's for at-home pet grooming. It's actually called the Doodle brush, and I like this one because it has a offset top, as you can see, almost like a swivel. And so what that actually does is when you're grooming specifically doodles, if any of you doodles, poodles, super curly coats, you'll understand what I'm talking about with this. But this, it curves, and it actually follows the curves of their body, and it actually gets down all the way to their coat. This one I like too. It's very soft. The tines are very flexible. They're very long, and they're curved out, as you can see. so it gives you a good grab without scraping that skin. That's why I like this one as well, because it has the soft head. It goes with the contours of the body. And this one's very soft. This is a very soft slicker brush. Like, this feels like air. And it, you know, no scratches, no anything. This one's a little bit firmer, as you can kind of hear. You can kind of see it's a little stiffer, which isn't awful if you're using this on a bigger dog. Specifically the doodle brush, like they market with a lot of hair. So it's not a bad brush, still not going to hurt him, so I like this one. But that's something to keep in mind with slicker brushes. Not all of them are created equal. A lot of cheap slicker brushes will have tines, very few tines. They'll be very stiff. If it hurts you, if you brush it across your skin or your arm and it's physically painful, it doesn't feel like just light scratching, if anything, don't use it, because it's going to hurt them as well. You know, dog skin is not the same as ours, but in comparison, you can tell over time if you're brushing a dog for half an hour or something to that effect or more, you're going to be irritating that skin. That's where we hear of, you know, clipper rash and brush rash a lot. So something to keep in mind with that. So moving on to our next ones. These are similar to dematting knives. I have myself have never used an actual dematting knife. I have used these guys, which it's basically a D-shed rake, but it's shorter and bladed, kind of, I guess more for a face is the best way. I think this one is specifically more for face. This is just something that I got years ago when I actually started grooming. This is one of my very, very first brushes. As you can tell, I've not used it a lot. I used mainly my Greyhound combs, and then like techniques and stuff like that, slicker brushes. But I did use this occasionally for, you know, like a dematting knife. I do like this one for that specific reason of it not being specifically a dematting knife. Not there's anything wrong with dematting knives, but I do not have a left-handed dematting knife myself. But also, dematting knives, sometimes if the dog is super difficult, especially with faces, it can be a bit of a touch and go process. So this one, especially if you're working with high volume, fast salon, I was working for a big box store, so it was very fast paced. Not that you couldn't take your time with the animal, but you definitely cannot sit there for 30 minutes fighting an animal on their face. Did I sometimes? Absolutely. There's just no choice. But it's not the most ideal thing, and then to have to worry about your tools on top of that. Dematting knives are great for animals that can handle them, but some animals just can't, and that also goes down to if the animal is matted and they cannot handle, if the animal is matted and it needs to be shaved out, then it needs to be shaved out, because that hair, if it's dematted or brushed out, it will just remat and it will be dead hair, and it's just not a good time. It's not good for the animal, it's not good for the groomers, it's just a repeat process, it's not good. So again, this was just for, I hate using the word dematting, but that's what the tool is called, dematting knife, and that's how I use this one. But for knots in the face, things like that, that you could brush out, you could thin out, this is really great for. A lot of times doodles actually have almost like a double coat. It's very hard to describe, but they have a curly coat that sheds quite heavily, and then it gets caught underneath their top longer hairs that creates this effect of a double coat. Doodle hair has a very hard time picking a genetic marker to be, because they're two very different, especially if you're taking golden retriever to poodle straight. I believe they're called F1s doodles, and those are where you'll see the most of, it could be anything. You'll see a lot of that heavy, thick hair that sheds very heavily. A myth you'll hear a lot about golden doodles, or doodles in general, is that they are hyperallergenic. This is not true. So this is where this comes really in handy, because this one is a right-handed comb. It's hard to use this, but I'll show you how a left-handed person would use this. So imagine here's the dog's face here, and here's this. So if I come out like this, that's very awkward, right? So what I would actually do is I would flip it, and I would use it like that, or I would flip it. This one I didn't use a lot because this one's really hard to flip and turn the way I would use it properly. But I would flip it this way and flip it into itself. So there's the tines, and then I would rake out. So this one did not get a lot of use because it's a little bit more difficult to kind of use like that. As you can see, it's not super comfortable. So, but that's how I used it. This is the same type of brush. It's double-sided. It's got the tines, the splitters. This is basically just a thicker version of a Greyhound comb format, but it's designed for splitting the hair. And then on the other side, there's actually this really cool guard, and you just flip it, and then it exposes your blades. Same thing, this one just has more blades. This one has also two different widths. It's got tight and loose, and this one, I believe it would be considered like a 6-tooth because of the number here, but I'm not quite sure if that's how they'd consider it. This one I like a lot. It has an ergonomic handle. You can kind of tell if you're right-handed, this will make sense to you. That's how it would be to you. To me, I'm left-handed, but again, it wasn't awful because it actually had an ergonomic grip to it. So it was actually pretty versatile. I really enjoy this brush quite a bit. I've had this brush for maybe about a year, maybe. Really love this brush quite a bit, and super easy to keep clean, super easy to blow off. Great handle. I like that it's thicker, so you're not over stressing those tendons by holding something quite so small. This kind of gives you a little more grip, a little more space, and a little more wrist flexibility, which we love in grooming. It's very important. Sorry, I'm shaking the camera there. So this, flip it, a lot easier. This was a lot easier brush to use. It was not as awkward. It was just far more enjoyable to use. And then what I really like too is it has a guard, so you can keep your blades sharp. You can keep your rake protected. Very nice. So those are some, basically like we call them the dematting combs in a way. This is an actual de-shedding rake. This is again by Ryan's Pet Supplies. Same thing, ergonomical handle. This is really nice. I think they have the wooden version of this. I can't quite remember though. It might just all be this resin, I believe it is. This one, I believe it's a 12-tooth comb. Could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure they come in 12, 20, and then I believe there might be a 30-tooth. This one, I like the size of it. I like the weight of it. This is actually heavy. It's metal, so it is a little bit heavier, so you can actually just use your tool and let it do its work, which is really nice. You can tighten, adjust this if it ever does get loose. Mine has not. I've not had this very long, so it's not gotten, super messed up. But it's very sturdy. It's stood up to everything I've put it against. I think it's relatively easy to clean. And yeah, it's got a really nice ergonomic handle. It's soft with this grip, these little toe beans, and that just gives you a great grip. So whenever you're doing your de-sheds, you're not going to lose this brush, because a lot of times that's what I found with something like a smooth handle. Over time that does, especially if you're sweaty, you're hot, you've been working on a dog for an hour, not the greatest thing. So ergonomic handles, you don't think about it, but when you're doing it long enough, you'll come to appreciate it. But yeah, this is a really great de-shedding rake. I use it on anything that needs it. Terrier coats, a lot of terrier coats where you would card them. I would use this bad guy. Fantastic. So that's another one. The Pride and Joy. This is actually a gift. So this is a gift from another groomer. It's a funny story. We were playing around with our tools one day, And she's like, gosh, I hate this Ataro comb. It is just so heavy and bulky. I said, gosh, I love it because it's so heavy and bulky. She said, you want to trade? And so I traded. I gave her it was a very fine, thin, stainless steel Greyhound comb. She loved it great, and I got this one. I love it, and it's great. I love this one because it does have that chunky, round handle. I love this. Love, 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 love it. This one is great. I believe this one is a 12-inch, and you've got your teeth gradient. Fantastic. This one's actually pretty tight teeth. It's not my smallest. It's on the bigger side, but this great for faces, tear staining, that kind of thing, to get it out, and then just go back over it with a flea comb. Comes right out. This brush, as you can see, I don't know if I can get this on camera, but I mean it's missing a little bit of paint over time because of how much I've used this. This brush is probably 2-3 years old. Might be from the beginning of my career. I can't remember when we got this brush in, but I do know it's been used and passed around like the Yaya sisters. So it's a heck of a brush, and it's heavy, it's balanced. Absolutely love the weight on this Greyhound comb. Flip it around in your hand. Fantastic. If anyone out there likes a little more weight to their tools, you will love this. Absolutely love this. It's a very balanced comb. This is an Ataro comb, but they do sell Greyhound combs in this style. I've never seen one quite with this chunky of a handle, but at Ataro. But I could be wrong. They could have brands out there that have a very chunky handle like this. But I love this. I like that it's blue. It's cute. I like to be very colorful as a groomer. Last but not least, this one isn't a brush, but it's a tool that you should always have. This is actually my own Dremel. And this is the Paw Control Dremel. Now, not sponsored, anything like that. I wouldn't necessarily highly recommend this brand. They're a good starter brand. They're going to get you through the day. They're going to work. They're going to do big claws, little claws, everything in between. They do come with a guard. They do come with diamond tips. So it's a pretty good package. I think it's, I want to say somewhere around the $60 range for the whole package. Don't quote me on that because prices change a lot nowadays. But overall, for a beginner groomer to have their own Dremel, because I know a lot of salons, what they'll do is they'll have a store Dremel, and nothing wrong with that, but it's hard when you've got as many dogs, especially if you do finishing nails like I did on pretty much every dog that I could, unless the dogs absolutely wouldn't let me Dremel their nails. And then that I would just do a manual clip, and I would do our scraping technique where you just gently take little tiny slivers off the nail chunk by chunk until it's relatively smooth. But again, that's more of an advanced thing. It's more of just old school nail trimming technique. I like this, good quick finish. And most of the time I found that most dogs, once you introduce this to them, what I would do is I would turn it on, and then I would put the butt into their body so they would feel what the vibration felt like. If I wasn't doing a clipper on them, they were already used to that. And then I would actually take this, let them keep standing, and just tap their toes with this part so they felt what it felt like. The only trouble I ever had with this one is a little bit louder. It's not super loud, as you can hear. That's on the midway setting 3. But it is a little bit more aggressive with vibration. So if you did have a super sensitive dog, if they had arthritis or something to that effect, it could be a little bit difficult for those. Oftentimes what I would try to do is just have them sit or lay down to get their nails done for seniors. I was a big advocate for that. So putting the table on the ground. I had a table that had electrics so it could go up or down. Not everyone has that. A lot of salons I know will do hands-on pet. They'll do 2 people. So just anything that kind of works. But the only problem I had with this one was seniors. That's about the only thing I'd say. That and super hyper or prey driven dogs, just because this can sound very, it can trigger like their prey drive of like something to nip at. There's actually, I think, I don't know if you can see that or not, there's like a tiny chunk where somebody tried to take a chunk out of this at one point. They did not succeed. That's another thing I like about this. I've had so many dogs go for this Dremel and they bite it and it stands the test of time. I will be very honest about that. This thing is a beast. It's been dropped, it's been rolled, it's been bit. You cannot see a single mark on this thing. I mean, this thing, it's heavy too. I mean, it's a tank. This thing, I mean, it's gonna get you through just about any day at the salon. It's not the prettiest, it's not the cutest, it's not the quietest, but in terms of power, battery life, and durability, it's very hard to find one that's gonna beat this unless you start paying like upwards of big bucks, which absolutely, you know, pay big money, get a really nice Dremel, but really, for something that I find is so fine-tuned, delicate, you're using this on every single nail of a dog. Dog has 4 feet. You're doing how many dogs a day? Do the math. That adds up quite a bit. So, great. It's super easy to get replacement parts for these too from the company. They're pretty universal, wide where they sell. I never had a huge problem with them. Everything came in super easy. The only thing that changes is sometimes they change a little bit of their head design. I think this is the 2nd gen, and I believe when I bought it they do say that as well. I think the ID number's different, but for how long they've been around, only 2nd generation, that's not bad, not in my opinion. You know, you like consistency as a groomer, you like know what to expect from companies, so I don't have a huge problem with them. I like it quite a bit. It's very sturdy. But yeah, so that's all of the mainline tools I use. Obviously, I've got way more stuff I use, little bits and bobs, specialty brushes, face brushes, that kind of thing. But starting out, especially if you're a baby groomer, this is a fantastic lineup. This is gonna get you through just about any of your days you could be thrown at as a baby groomer. So I want to thank you all for joining me in my garden today to talk about all this stuff, and I cannot wait to see you on the next one. Thank you. Bye-bye.